In this episode of Testimony, a Musician's Story, presented by Sound Seekers, I talked to singer Reagan Capaci. She shares her Christian testimony in how she grew up independent Baptist, which she considers a cult. She talks about the transition from that life to the life she now knows as a Christian. She talks about how YouTube saved her family and her passion for kids aging out of the foster system. Additionally, in the 4-song breakdown, she breaks down Play This, Closed, Milk, and Rent 5. I am Galika Brown, and this is Sound Seekers Presents Testimony, a Musician's Story. Let's talk about your first music memory, whether it be the first song you ever heard or music video. Like, what's the first memory that comes to mind?
My favorite first music memory, or just like in general? Those are two very different.
I'm curious about both, actually, now that you said that. So let's do both. We can start with in general.
Okay. So first ever, I probably just when I was really young, and I did a little concert with my church with psalm songs that like our director had created, and we went and like recorded in a studio when I was like super young. So that's like the first memory I remember of just being like, music is so fun and this is really cool. But my like favorite music memory where I like truly fell in love with music was when I took a vocal jazz class in high school. And that's when I really, really fell in love with music, kind of understanding the history of it and all that it has to bring and offer. So.
Okay. All right. And can I get you to pronounce your last name?
Yes, it's Kuh-pay-see.
Kuh-pay-see. Reagan Capaci.
Just think like pay.
That's a good way to remember it.
Yeah, it's hard. I know people, they butcher it all the time, but it's fun. I don't care.
And where were you born and raised?
I was actually born in Hot Springs, Arkansas. That place does exist.
Okay.
Really small. I moved around a lot, but that's where I was born originally, in the South. So good times.
And where would you say you were mainly? Was there one place that you stayed at the longest?
So I moved to Arkansas, was in North Carolina for a little bit, moved to Memphis, Tennessee. Really loved Memphis. But then I moved to Las Vegas, and I would say like this is my home, really. This is kind of where I say like, we've been here the longest, I think, too. But this is where I say is my home.
Okay, so Vegas, that's where you're at now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dope. And did you grow up in a 2-parent household?
Yes, I did. 2 amazing parents.
Was there a reason why you guys were moving so often and frequently?
Yeah, so I am a PK, pastor's kid, been since birth.
Okay.
That's kind of like why we traveled a lot. The main reason we traveled a lot is because of the environment that we were in was like toxic. Okay. So just, yeah. I mean, I can go into it further if you want.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm curious as to what you're referring to. But yeah, if you can go further.
Yeah, sure. So we grew up in, it's called independent fundamentalism, if you're familiar with that.
I am not.
Yeah, it's pretty much a cult is kind of how I describe it. Because if you look up like the definition of a cult, like it's that. But it was just, it is what it is. Very strict, law-based. Our desires and passions and main subject was not Christ. It was man. Very sexist environment, very racist environment. Just very much what we were against and not really what we were for. And we, like, my church was my school was my church. We were not allowed to be involved in anything outside of our community that wasn't in the bubble. Like my dad got hate from like living too far away from the church. Very strict dress code, like couldn't wear anything but skirts, pantyhose, turtlenecks. Thought if I wore pants, I was going to hell. So when I got my first pair of pants, I thought I was like bad kid. It was rough, a lot of corruption in the church too, which is, it's sad. I know it happens everywhere, but a lot of corruption that this church kind of brought. So like if something did happen, basically it would just be like swept under the mat, swept under the rug, and then they would just get like rehired at another church, like in another state. And this was like a constant thing that would just like keep happening, where really young teen girls that were just like, bad things were happening. But my dad, he was a pastor at this church in Arkansas, and we moved to North Carolina for a little bit. It was still in the same pool. And then we moved to Memphis to try to like get out of it. But we were basically like 1 foot in, 1 foot out is kind of how I would describe it.
Okay.
And really with this is like, you can't, it's either you're out or you're in. There's no like in between, or you're still basically in it.
Yeah.
And so, and this is like the really short condensed version, but we moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, my sophomore year of high school. And, you know, my parents cried because they had to take me to public school because we couldn't afford private school. They thought they were like throwing me into hell. And they'd like, because all my other sisters, I have 2 older siblings, went to private school and they knew where they were going. And my parents been taught this their whole life, that this is right, you know?
Yeah.
And we didn't have social media back then, really. We didn't have YouTube or anything like that. And I feel like YouTube genuinely saved my family because that's when my dad kind of started listening to other pastors and kind of hearing like what the gospel truly is, and that we're interpreting it poorly and very awful. And so we moved to Las Vegas. We planted a church here in a casino, actually, which was fire, and it was awesome. But with music and all of that, like I wasn't allowed to listen to it. That's why I was saying like my music memory. I wasn't allowed to listen to anything that had drums, a beat. Like that's the devil's heartbeat is what they call it.
Wow. Okay.
It's kind of humorous when you think about it.
Like singing just like hymn type songs.
All hymns.
Got it.
All hymns.
Got it.
No modern worship songs, like maybe Christ Alone, but that was really pushing it kind of stuff. So yeah, so like even when I did the Psalm songs, like they're all strictly from the Bible, scripture, nothing else. And I didn't really love to sing in the church I grew up in because anytime I would sing, we would get complaints like I was trying to be showy or I was trying to have like a concert, and I'm like 12. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm just singing. Like, I don't understand. I'm like, sorry, I have soul for the gospel. Like, my bad. No, but yeah, that's why when you said that, I was like, I have music memories, but I wouldn't say they were the greatest. But they were still understand. A memory.
Okay. I got the context now. Wow. Okay. So, and you said your parents grew up in the independent fundamentalism? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, they met in college at a college called Hyles-Anderson, which is under the IFB movement. And that's kind of like what they grew up in as well. Well, my dad was Catholic, but that's kind of where they came to church and stuff. So that's like really all they knew as well. So.
Yeah. So, okay. Now I'm curious. I have a lot of questions now. But when you guys went to Memphis and you're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, like how does that look like to be 1 foot in a cult and 1 foot into, I guess, the real world?
So when we moved from Arkansas, we definitely were like kind of not a part of it anymore, in the sense like they were not ever going to talk to us. Like family, friends were just basically rejected us. Mm-hmm. And since this is all we know, like moving to Memphis was huge. So this church, I would say it's basically like under the Southern Baptist kind of culture, church culture, but worse, like really bad. Not that Southern Baptist culture is bad. It's just little still like law-based. Yeah. So we weren't under the IFB movement. Like we didn't have the name, but everything pretty much flowed the same.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like my dad was in charge of stuff, so he was able to like maneuver his way to like kind of share the gospel in a better way. But that caused people to leave the church because they also were like, this isn't what we know. And so it was gray areas, if that makes sense.
And so then you get to Vegas, and that's when your dad, like YouTube, like shout outs to YouTube. Whoever like said
Shout
YouTube
out.
saved my life. Like,
Literally.
but then he was able to see like other pastors and be like, oh, wait a minute. There's something else out there. This doesn't sound quite right. Like things are clicking. So that's happening with your dad, but how is that transition for you as a kid who was born into this, raised by it, and now all of a sudden it's not a part of your life anymore?
Right. It was definitely still confusing sometimes. I would say it still kind of pops up just with like trauma, like little things that pop up. And I'm like, I can't, process that very well. My sisters are older than me, so I think they had it way worse.
Yeah.
I definitely had it. I went to public school in middle school. So I feel like I was kind of exposed to the outside world a little bit better. But even going into church still, like I had a lot of, walls up. And so I think that was like the biggest thing that impacted me was trusting people ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I still wanted to pursue Jesus because my parents showed a love that was unlike any other.
Mm-hmm.
And they really showed me who Jesus was. But the transition was definitely the hardest because when I moved to Las Vegas, I went to a performing arts high school.
Okay.
So I was around a lot of stuff that I had never been around before.
Creative,
just like, as we would quote, great, which I love so much now.
Yes.
But I was taught was sinful and evil.
That everybody's going to hell there.
Oh, absolutely. Like I was in hell, literally. And I'm like, wow, like you guys are so nice. Like hell is nice. This is crazy. I think that was definitely the hardest transition because I was taught this in my brain so much. Like when my sister got her first pair of pants, bawled my eyes out. I was like, we're going to hell. Like when that's all you know, it's just all you know. And it's funny, but it's also really sad. Like as a kid, when you're just very confused. Thankfully, I had two amazing parents. Like I said. But genuinely, I think that's what they brought me and walked alongside of me. So if I ever had questions like, hey, we said this, like we weren't allowed to go to the movie theaters. Why are we allowed to go to them now? Yeah. Hey, I'm allowed to watch a movie that's PG. Why am I allowed to watch that? Little things that don't seem like a big thing were huge to me. Mm-hmm. And especially with music. So, and then when I had friends that went to church here that cussed, I was like, I'm confused. Like everything was so confusing. Yeah. The line, the gray areas were all over the place. And yeah, it was interesting for sure.
No, that makes sense. Okay. And so, I mean, it's almost kind of like you're relearning, or did you feel like you were relearning like Christ? Because now it's in a different context, or he's in a different context.
Right. I get this question a lot. And I think it's an important question. And I think I still constantly ask it myself. Like, did I truly know Jesus if I believed this? Mm-hmm. Because that's not who Jesus is or was. And that's not at all what he has told us he is. And I want to say I knew the basics of God's love, right? Mm-hmm. But I think I'm learning more of who Jesus truly was since, high school. Of just even little things like mixed marriages, like that was a sin, like big sin, and you cannot, and not in an evil way. I don't think my parents put it in an evil way. Like that's just literally what they were taught, and it's awful. But thankfully, we know that's not evil now. But even just with racism, like and everything that's going on in our country, that's been going on in our country, like I thought that way when I was younger. Like I can say that, like that is what I was taught. Yeah. Like, we separate ourselves because it's easier for our children if we had children, like our kids would be confused. Like I was taught all of those things. Okay. And so when I kind of find out who Jesus truly is, I'm like, did I really know Christ if I thought that way? Exactly. But the good news is I do know him now. And I do know he's a loving God and a unifying God. And it has been a beautiful journey because I think I was more in a relationship with man, quote unquote, and what they taught more than Jesus Christ and who he is. Yeah.
No, it's awesome that you had the wherewithal to even think about did I really know him? And the fact, like, there's maturity, and the fact that you can even say, yeah, I did think this way because I was taught that way. And I'm sure this is going to be an ongoing journey, just like it is with all of us. Like, we're constantly going to be learning who Christ is. But that's definitely a different perspective.
I think it's just when you're taught one thing for so long, it's sad. And I feel like I have a weird place in my heart for people that have been taught one thing, especially when they were younger, because that's when your brain is like developing.
Yeah, definitely.
And, you know, you trust everything your parents say because they're your parents. And it is even cool to see my parents' journey through just like seeing that, like, going to the movies was evil, and now they're just like small, stupid things, but even in big topics, like not being so close-minded and actually saying, hey, this is the gospel. I know I've been taught this way my whole life, but there's more because the word. So, yeah.
Exactly.
I could go on.
I mean, and it's not really that you have like a weird spot in your heart for it. Like, I think that it's awesome that you have a spot in your heart for people like that, because it's necessary. Everybody, a lot of people have been taught the wrong things.
Oh my gosh, my whole life.
Yeah, exactly. So that's cool.
Yeah, I'm just thankful somebody walked alongside me and was like, let me show you what is right and what is true, and not being mad at me for thinking another way. You know, so I think that's the coolest part.
That's awesome. And was that something that happened when you moved to Vegas?
It was when I went to college, actually. In Arizona. Yeah, I had a mentor of mine named Adam Thompson, and he kind of like showed me the ropes, a lot of stuff, and he was great. Basically, he just walked me through a lot of important details.
So let's talk about that. So you're referring to Adam Thomason, who was the owner of Collision Records. Like,
oh, yes.
The legendary.
You know him.
To me, legendary.
I forget everybody knows him.
Yeah, I mean, We Live as Kings. He had Alex Faith and Swoop and Chris and Gray and Dre Murray.
Yes.
And the newer cast like Corey Paul and Keyshawn, like, on the label. Definitely familiar with his work, but was not aware that he was a mentor of yours. How did you even hook up with him while in college?
Yeah, so him and his wife were just like a big influence in my life. They definitely still are. I was really sad when they moved away from Arizona. I was in Arizona for school. I had a friend that I did community outreach with, and he heard one of my jazz standards on SoundCloud. That's like the only thing I had up.
Okay.
And he was like, yo, like, run this. I was like, nah. And then he's like, let me introduce you to my boy, Adam. And I was like, okay, I meet this man. I'm so intimidated. I'm like, this guy is way cooler than I'll ever be. So he was kind of, I would say, genuinely, like, his wife was like one of my biggest mentors, and him. But just walking me through a lot of things. He did a lot of classes in Arizona too, just talking about the racial divide and
at your university
church. He did one at our university, but he just would do them around Arizona.
Okay.
This man does everything, and he does it excellently. So yeah, just the conversations that we got to have, and him develop. I would say, like, it was a big turning point in just kind of how I saw Jesus and how I saw people. He challenged me a lot in that as well, and with music. So like, he gave me a lot of, like, he's the one I put a like mixtape on SoundCloud of Kanye's 808 and Heartbreak or whatever, and I did like a jazz rendition of it. Like, he's the one that got me connected to that, because I didn't know anything about any music, like, at all.
Kanye who?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm just kidding. But he's like, yeah, you need to run this. Yeah, he put me on. He put me on for sure.
Okay. So, and what were some of the topics that you said he would give around town?
He mainly was talking about just like the white evangelical church and just race, basically, and just challenging us, kind of just informing us in a way that I had never seen the world with someone that is white, female, and I've never seen the world that way. And, and he just go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, basically what you were saying is just, it's interesting how you come from the environment of the quote unquote, like, cult world, and then you get hooked up with someone like Adam,
Right.
who
It's crazy.
and he can
It's
definitely, I mean, the polar opposite in terms of like him being like pro-black,
right.
in terms of like what you were taught, to then be hooked up with someone like him is
Right.
God is
It's
interesting
Jesus.
and
It's
funny.
his work.
He's
His
hilarious,
work.
guys.
He really is. No, but it was awesome. Like he's amazing, and his challenges of just, and the way that he would approach and express things, I was like, that makes sense. Like, I understand.
Yeah.
And he just does it in such a way of love, which is who Jesus is, I think.
Awesome. Okay. And so you were mentored by him and his wife and met him when you were in college. And do you mind if I ask how old you are now?
I'm 22.
Okay. So,
yeah, just graduated.
Okay, well, congratulations.
Thank you. Graduated during COVID and didn't get a walk, but it's fine.
Oh,
no, it's fine. I feel like I got the best end of it. Other people have had way worse stories with COVID, so can't come.
So were you in Arizona when COVID happened and you had to come back home?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Came back home because I lost my job and all the music industry shut down. That was like basically where my other income was coming from. So came back home, but I love Vegas as well.
Okay. And then you just had to do everything online for school. And did they give you like some sort of virtual ceremony or something?
No, they were going to do one in December, but I think they canceled it. So they might do one in 2021, but I'm kind of over it at this point.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay. I graduated. Like, it's fine.
Well, I didn't even like want to walk at mine. So I just
That's what I've heard. People were like, you didn't miss anything.
Yeah, I did not attend. So if COVID happened, there's no way I would even consider attending.
Right. True.
So how would you say God's presence looks like in your life personally?
Beautiful question. Right now, I would say peace would be the word to kind of define it. In everything that's going on, it's his presence around me is just peace. Mm-hmm. When there's confusion with, who's going to be elected, with what's going to happen with when this person gets elected, there's no fear in me because I have peace. Mm-hmm. And I trust in a God who knows what's going to happen, already knew what was going to happen and what will happen. And then even with COVID, peace. A lot of great things are happening with music. And I was like, let's freaking go. Like, finally, my hard work's paying off. Entertainment industry shut down. Yeah. And I was like, peace. Jesus in the presence is peace. And you can't receive peace really from anything or anyone. You can receive peace that's like for 5 minutes, maybe a day from somebody or something or a happy moment, but it's just not lasting. So when you get to receive that underlying peace when literally your world is shaking and you don't know what to do, like I would say that's the biggest way that God's presence is surrounding me.
I mean, that's an amazing presence to have, especially during this time, to have peace. Yeah. Like, that's probably a prayer for a lot of people to have that. So
it is. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're going to do something a little bit funner for a moment and go to a trending topic. So it's what's currently trending on Twitter right now.
Okie dokie.
So we have Beyoncé in Ivy Park. Have you been following the release of her fashion line with Adidas?
I have not. I'm the worst.
Yeah. Well,
but I should be.
It's all good. I didn't even know that it dropped until somebody told me. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Because apparently, it's sold out.
Everything.
Yeah, it sold out super quick. Like, I don't know, within like an hour or two.
Dang, as it should though.
Exactly. But like the last time, I don't know if you're familiar. The first time it dropped, she sends packages to her friends, and it's like you get a huge rack of clothes. So it's a rack of clothes, and then it has like a backdrop at home for a photo shoot. Right. And so it's basically a box, and then people and like Kerry Washington, Kalani, 21 Savage.
Yeah.
So they make these the videos of them receiving them and trying on the clothes, and then they have the backdrop, and it's like the perfect marketing tool,
It
right?
is super dope.
And then additionally, like she'll do handwritten, personalized notes to the people that she's sending it to, which to me is just nuts. So, but my question to you is, you're pretty creative with your post on social media when it comes to like you marketing a song. So what do you think about Beyonce and like her whole marketing strategy whenever she drops these and sends the boxes to her friends?
Right. I think she's a queen, so she always does everything better than everybody else. I'm like, dang, I should have done that. No, I think that's really smart. It's all about social media nowadays and getting people to post about it. So her like dropping that off at someone's house, whatever, it's the surprise, it's the excitement, like, ooh, I kind of want to get a box, like all that stuff. And then people are going to post about it. Like, I love my fresh fit, nice backdrop, and then it's aesthetically pleasing on the social, like, that's incredibly smart marketing. And then even just like having a message like personalized, that's ideal. Because anytime I send a message on Instagram like, check out my song, ain't nobody gonna check it out. If I say like, hey, whoever your name is, hope your family's doing well, how are your kids, like whatever, it's way more meaningful, and they'll take time to like actually like check out your music, check out your brand, check out your clothing line, whatever that might be. That's genius. I just need more money.
I know, right? I mean, just think about how expensive it is to like ship to like FedEx.
Dude, right.
A rack of clothes.
I'm like, you could fit like 5 people in there.
Yeah. And she's probably like overnighting it too. I'm sure she's not doing like the free regular post.
Oh, no. She's like fragile. It's going to be in its own shipping plane. Like, no, that's genius. I love that. I'm about to go look that up after this.
Yeah, no, it's pretty dope. Very dope. All right, so let's go forward. We'll talk about music. And how did you even get your start into music? How do you go from singing songs about psalms to what you're doing now?
Best. How is the real question? No, I took a vocal jazz class in high school. That's kind of when I was exposed to music that I really, really loved. Because when I took the class, I was like, I want to be a pop star. Like, I don't like jazz. And then I was like, I don't want to do anything that's pop. I only want to do jazz. So I dropped out Jazz Standard on SoundCloud. That was the first song I'd ever recorded. It was Misty by Ella Fitzgerald. And Adam is like the person that like got me rolling genuinely. Mm-hmm. So met him. He was like, you need to run this. So I just dropped stuff on SoundCloud. He introduced me to a lot of different producers that he knew in Phoenix. And I got good relationships with them, but we never like super clicked, which is totally okay. And then I did a song with an artist. His name's Bodie. He's in Arizona. And this guy named Mofo Music was on it. He was like the producer and basically like wrote the whole track. Mm-hmm. And he reached out to me and was like, hey, you trying to work? And I was like, yes, I've been trying to work. So I've never met him. He lives in Detroit. We've done everything over text and email, and I record everything on a Blue Snowball mic, USB to my computer, and we just get work done. And I like just FaceTimed him recently, like in a year, like 6 months ago, or something like that. Where I first saw his face, because I was like, you could be catfishing me, which it doesn't really matter, but I just like want to know what you look like.
So how long ago was that then, when you first started working?
I would say a little bit over a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we dropped our first song together like a little bit over a year ago. Yeah.
Well, that's like the beauty about technology, that you can work with people across the country and have never met. When I first started the podcast, like the first 5 years, I was working with an engineer out of Nashville. But he was more than an engineer, he's my partner as well. But we never even met in person. Never met still to this day. And how I started this podcast in 2013. But yeah.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, my COVID didn't really, when it came to like doing stuff with music, I'm like, I do everything online anyway.
Exactly. So are you still on the Blue Snowball, or have you?
I am.
Okay.
I'm really loyal. I'm Italian, so like I'm loyal to my mic. I'm like, it's got me here, you know. I have other friends that like studios. I've recorded in them sometimes, but nothing that I've ever dropped. I've always recorded from my loose wall.
All right.
The worst.
Whatever works. And so, okay. So then so basically you went from jazz standards to working on solely with, what was his name?
Mofo music.
Mofo music.
Moflo, sorry.
Moflo.
Yeah.
How do you go from jazz standards to what you do now?
Right. I did miss that. I didn't want to drop anything unless it was jazz. I was like really annoying about that. And then I realized no one really listens to jazz. So then I cried. And then I got over it. And then I wrote Milk. No, I was kidding. I kind of like to say that vocally, everything comes inspiration from jazz.
Yeah.
So my backing track, whether that's really pop R&B, whatever that might look like, I would still say I had jazz influence and jazz tones with my vocals. And a lot of like my melodic runs or whatever you want to say comes from standards, jazz standards. And I really do genuinely love like the genre. I'm kind of in like the pop R&B world, like modern, not really R&B. I hate saying R&B because everyone just puts R&B to everything, but I would say a little bit of my tracking, like with the bass and stuff, it goes with R&B worlds. But that's kind of, I just transitioned mainly because I'm like, people are never going to listen to jazz, so I'll just have jazz tones and I'll confuse them. Hopefully they'll like this, and then I'm going to try to bring them into the jazz world hopefully later.
Got it. So basically, was it because you grew up like in a cult that you didn't realize people aren't listening to jazz music anymore? You thought Ella Fitzgerald was still like popping like that?
True. Low-key though, I'm like, well, I took a class about it, and I'm like, if there's a class about it, that means everyone's listening to it, right?
Right.
I didn't know what was good and what was like hot, like at all, like literally at all. And some people are like, oh yeah, people always say they love jazz, but nobody listens to it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you guys are all liars. I'm confused. My brain is so confused. What's good?
So were you into that? What Ryan Gosling. Was it Hollywood Land?
La La Land.
La La Land.
Come on. Hollywood Land. I'm dead.
Were you feeling that movie because of the jazz?
Loved it. I think they did such an excellent job of making people that don't like jazz understand jazz in a small way, like an introductory way.
Yeah.
Like they did a great job. I thought it was awesome.
Okay.
I loved it.
And production-wise, you mainly work with MoFlo?
I do, but I have worked with other producers as well. Like I've branched out and stuff. He works with a lot of artists as well, so we're not just like But we are a team. We still work with other people.
Because I'm just curious about how you choose your beats and because all of your beats it's a great selection. So how do you go from your whole jazz background to selecting dope beats?
Right. True. It's the whole like, I hate being in a box, how artists always say that. I really feel big on that when it comes to selecting beats or selecting a song to create. I'm like, if I listen to something and I like it, I do not care what the genre is. Genuinely. Like that's just how I am, because I could create a beautiful song with that. But if it wasn't like in the genre of this, then how would I have ever known if I created that song? So it really just all comes down to if I vibe with this, if I like it, and I think it would flow well with my voice. It really doesn't matter, genuinely, for me, I would say. And then I've even tried more during COVID, like when I'm like trying to force myself to write because there's nothing else to do, has been kind of expanding into different genres that I would not necessarily like writing to. And then so many cool things have come from that as well. So, and again, like with the pop sells is what people say, right? Yeah. So again, like my goal is to be in this pop genre. And then once people love my voice, hopefully, or enjoy it, I can introduce a different kind of sound in the jazz world so that they still hear that voice, and the voice is the home. but everything else around it is kind of like a vacation or like going somewhere else and kind of experiencing something else.
Okay, I'm trying to low key slide in that jazz on us.
We're gonna do it one day.
Okay. How would you, because you said you don't, like artists don't want to be put in a box, but your music, if I was just listening to it and I knew absolutely nothing about you, I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, she's a Christian artist.
Right.
Is that purposefully? Like, how would you label, quote unquote, yourself?
Yes, that is definitely on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it comes off of my background, and even being a Christian in this world today, when you say Christian, immediately people stop listening to you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You're frozen.
Okay, sorry. I was like, you froze, so I was making sure.
You froze for a second, but I could hear you.
Back.
We're back.
Okay, cool.
You're moving.
Sorry. So even when you say you're a Christian today, people just automatically don't listen to you if they're not like in that world, especially like in the West Coast, at least from my experience. And so I think I don't even really like saying like Christian music, because I think that is music made by a Christian.
Yeah.
That's kind of just like word usage. It's not like terrible. It's just kind of how I like to present it. And then with my music, I think it is quote unquote Christian music because I am a Christian and God gave me this talent and gave me this ability to spread. And so, and my music it's not hate, it's, it's love. I mean, they're happy, sad songs, whatever, but it's my story and it's other people's stories and other people's perspectives, which is that's Jesus gave me this life and this story to tell. And I have one song that I put out that is Christian, on my EP called Home. But I like basically for interviews like this, is where it comes out basically. Yeah. And so people originally won't not listen to me because I'm Christian, but they'll listen to me because they like the sound. And then when they get to know that person better, have a relationship with me as an artist, they'll see like, oh, interesting. Like I would like to hear more about that instead of at the beginning, oh, you're a Christian? Okay, I'm good. You know, at least, especially when I went to LVA, my performing arts high school, like it was very much when I told people I was a Christian immediately, it was like, yeah. But then when I told them something about me,
that definitely happens. I would imagine it might be a bit more prevalent in Vegas than in some other cities. So
sure.
Definitely
not the South.
What was that?
Not the South. Everybody goes to church in the South.
Yeah, even if they just go, they're not really Christian there, but they go.
Yeah, that's what we do on Sunday.
Okay, so you're in Vegas. Are you connected to any other artists there in Vegas in the Christian world?
Oh, in the Christian world? No.
Yeah.
I'm not.
And when you were
very small.
When you were in Arizona, were you?
I would say Adam was pretty much my biggest connect in the Christian artist world. Yeah.
Okay. And then what about your decision to be featured on songs that are explicit? Well, I don't know if there's plural, but like Will Clay's On the Loose, dope song, and it's a positive song, but it is explicit. So what about how do you decide to be featured on stuff like that?
Yeah. Originally, he kind of told me the goal of the song, and I'm all on board for it. And then once I heard it, obviously, like have to consider like there are explicit language in this. To me, it's so weird hearing me say this now because originally I was like, if you say hell, like you're going to hell.
Yeah.
But sometimes in the hurt and in the pain and when you're trying to tell your story, those words are necessary for telling your perspective and telling your story and telling your hurt. I don't think it's wrong. I think it's honest and I think it's genuine and I think it's vulnerable. And sometimes without saying that word, the message may not get across as much as you want the pain to come across, or whatever that person's feeling. So for me, I was like, this is this man's story, and I back it. I'm fully like supporting it. And I had another song that I say like a curse word in it on my EP, and it's not technically explicit because it's just the SHIT. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss in here, so it's that. And but like when I was talking with like my parents, because my parents are like huge in my decision making, right? Yeah. So when I'm talking about this, I'm like, I am explaining why I'm putting this word into this song. Well, that whole EP is about foster care, and it's all of kids in the system and their perspective. Because I work a lot with kids in the foster care system. So that song is specifically about kids that have aged out. And I am speaking strictly on what a kid told me when I was talking with them in their house or in the group home. And I was like, I didn't want to say it because I haven't done anything like this before, but I'm like, this isn't my words. Like, these are their words. And I'm telling it on a platform that they don't have. And so for me, I do think that is necessary sometimes. But there's always a conversation and it's meaningful. It's not just like, oh, let's just add that. That's cool. Let's pop in. Like people are going to resonate with it. Like that's not the goal. The goal is that there's a true like meaning and story behind it that needs to be told.
Right on. Okay. So then the artists that you work with, for the most part, then they're not quote unquote Christian artists. They're just other artists making music.
Bodie is a Christian. He's a worship pastor in California. The guy I've done a song with. And Sam, I haven't done a song with Sam Puffy yet. Soon. I think that's the only other artist that I put stuff out with. Will. I don't know about Will, but he's a great dude. But yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, let's move forward and we'll go to the 4-song breakdown. And this is the part where the artist either recites or sings a verse. It discusses what's going on between the lines of the song's story. And so the songs that I selected for you are Play This, Closed, Milk, and Rent 5. So if we can start with Play This.
Cool. So am I singing or am I just saying the words?
If you can sing, that would be dope because you have a dope voice. But it's
really not me singing. I'm just kidding. This whole time it's somebody else.
This is where we find out, right? Millie, I don't know if you're old enough to know Millie Vanilli.
And even if I was, I wouldn't know who they are.
That's right, because you're, yeah.
People are like, you don't know this song? You don't know this artist? I'm like, cool. Don't forget.
Well, I don't even remember the song, but there was a really popular song like in the 80s, like it won Grammys. And it turns out, and the group was called Millie Vanilli. It was these two guys, black dudes, and they had like braids, but like singles, like what women wear.
Right.
And it turns out it wasn't their voice. The entire time, not them. It was like, I think it was
your life was a lie.
Yeah. So it was this huge scandal. I think it was like the late 80s or 90s. I don't know. I was a kid.
That's crazy.
So, but so that would be an exclusive. It ain't Reagan's voice.
Exclusive breaking news. Cool. Yeah, I'll start with Play This. So do you want me to go verse, explain, and then hook, explain?
You can just do the verse. Yeah, do the verse, explain, and then hook, explain. Perfect.
Okay. All right. So this is me. Here's what we're not gonna do. Forget about the love between me and you. We've had way too many good times. It is, you know, we're one of a kind. So, verse 1, basically, like this song I originally wrote it from the perspective of, I'd had talks about people that were older and were having some like issues and just like fighting and not remembering like where the love came from and where it started. And it's hard, like when you're with somebody for so long, like it happens.
Yeah.
And so like the first line is like the main thing that I wanted people to hear is like, here's what we're not going to do. Like, we're not going to do that. You know, so I'm kind of talking, being that partner. And this could be for someone that's older. This could be for someone that's younger. It could be a friendship. It could be dating.
Yeah.
But like, here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to forget about the love that me and you that we have. And it's not going to go anywhere unless we give up. And then kind of like talking about like we had good times and we're special. Like this relationship is special. So
okay.
that's the first one.
Okay.
I also think I started way too low, so I'm going to go higher.
Do what you gotta do.
Okay. So the hook is, won't someone play outside? The one we dance to all night long. Yes, someone play outside. Yeah, the one we dance to all night long. I think music is so important because, like, when you listen to a song and you're like, dang, I'm sad.
Yeah.
I'm sad. Like, you listen to that, you're like, that brought me back to 2008 when I was dating this person, whatever it might be. And same with happiness, same with joy. And when you play that music, that's what's like, what's our song? You know, everybody has their own song.
Yeah.
Or a song that reminds them of a moment. And so it's like really important to like, hey, put that music on and we're going to stay in this room until the song is over, or we're going to keep playing it until we remember where the love started. Am I doing this right?
No, yeah, you are. No. I like that. Definitely, because if I'm in a mood and I want to stay in that mood, like if I just want to be hella emo for some reason, then I'll put on some emo music and stay there. And if I'm emo and I need to get out of it, then I'll play the music that's going to get me out of it. So,
right.
I like the concept to play this. Okay. And I love your voice, and now it like the whole knowing the jazz background, it like all like kind of clicks and makes sense to me now.
Yay. That's awesome.
So if we can do closed next.
Cool. I'm like looking at my lyrics.
It's all good. Do what you gotta do.
I wrote it and I still don't know it. It's hilarious.
No, you're not the only one.
Good, that makes me feel better. One time I performed it and I was like, I don't know the verse too. That's crazy. I was like, what happened here? Okay. So I just pick a verse that I want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll do the verse. Okay. I don't wanna call back no more. Heard of some things I was good with that. I was good with that. I don't wanna think about your last words to me through a screen. Can barely say that out loud. Thank you for the time to show me what I don't like. Hey, yeah. I heard you were doing great. Tell me what the clubs are like. Hey, yeah. Saw you deleted out the memories, but that don't erase what you did to me. I'll be fine, but don't act like you're mine. That was kind of the verse 2, pre-chorus, whatever.
Okay.
So this song is about a person. Basically, okay, this is rule of thumb, and I think artists should follow this genuinely. But this is what I do. Anytime I ever am in a breakup or go through a relationship, I don't ever post songs unless I am over that person. I think that's really important.
Okay.
So if it's like a sad song, a happy song, whatever it might be, but it's about an ex or it's about an ex-friend or whatever it might look like, don't put music out that you're waiting for their response. You know what I mean? Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to fall back into that hole. So I just needed to say that because I think it's smart. But yeah, this song basically, I've never really like talked about it. Basically, it's just girl in a relationship, out of a relationship that was sad that it ended, right? Because you know you're with somebody for so long, and when you get out, you constantly start thinking of like all the good things because you're sad. So you're like, oh, this is so good, da 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 da. Until something happens that you see on social media, or something that happens that you hear from a friend, or da 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 da. And that's where it's like, I don't want to call back anymore. Like I'm still really sad and I'm hurt, but I saw some things that you're doing that I definitely don't need to be a part of, and that is confusing why I would ever want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And then the whole think about your last words to me through a screen. was because the relationship ended over text message.
Oh.
And then it happened.
That's the worst. It does happen,
right.
but it's
it
terrible,
happens.
but it happens.
You forgive and you love. Forgive and you love. And then the whole thing was like, can barely say that out loud was two meanings. Like you could barely say it out loud, and then I can barely even say that you did that out loud.
Yeah.
And then the pre is, thank you for the times you show me what I don't like. It's kind of mean, but you know, it happens.
Right.
Heard you're doing great. Tell me what the clubs are like. Basically just getting into things that person was never into. And then once the relationship is over, it was like, oh, I'm trying to better myself. And it's like, how are you getting better there? And then saw you deleted all the memories, but that doesn't erase what you did to me. Basically just like deleting everything on socials, like a day after, which is fine. That's their choice.
That's
and
super
then
quick.
I'll be.
That's some heartbreak.
I know. I was like, dang, that's fast. Like 2 years in 1 day is wild. Love you too. It's great. And then it was at the end is I'll be fine, but don't act like you mind. Because after like the text got broken up, then like a couple months later was like, hey, you know, there's little things that would happen. And it's like, I'm going to be okay, but don't act like my life really matters to you that much. And that's okay. It's just, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And then the hook is, I'll sing it. How do I forget the face I love? Tell me how we get so out of touch. I'll miss the old way we love. Really thought I knew how stupid of me. I think this is actually my favorite line I've ever written. Is like, how do I forget the face I love?
Yeah.
Because it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Because I think like even when you get out of a relationship, like that person later there should be reconciliation because I believe in that. But it's like, how do you forget the face of someone that you see every day and that you love them genuinely, whether that's in a romantic way or just like a friendship way or a godly way? It's like, how do you forget the face? I just really love that line genuinely.
That is
I was like, you go, Reagan.
You go, girl.
Yeah. And then just like basically the whole soundtrack of this, I consider like part 1 and part 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it's basically all the feelings. Like I'm sad, but I'm angry, right? Because anger comes from something.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of goes into this hook. Like the music falls of this, like I'm really sad and I'm angry, but then it's like, how do I forget? You know, how do I move on? Tell me how we get where we started and now we're here. I miss everything in the way that we loved, and not in a romantic way, just like loved in a friendship way.
Yeah.
And then really thought I knew how stupid of me. Pretty self-explanatory, but yeah, that's that one.
Wow.
I got a little deep.
that did get deep. And it also just made me think about how, because of technology and social media, that even though a relationship may be over, like between two people or between two people, it's kind of may not still be over, because you still have, like, if you really want to get clear your mind with someone, you literally, like you said, you have to delete everything on social media, all of your text messages, and you might even have to block someone if they want to keep trying to hit you up.
Right.
It makes it so much harder to just do a clean break. And then if you have like years of history on social media, because I've been in that situation, to where you can't, you maybe didn't get all of the pictures deleted off there, but then Facebook wants to remind you 2 years ago on this day.
2 years ago. Like, that should be illegal. That should be illegal. What's Facebook doing?
It's like, I hate
so
the memories. Every time I get a memory, I'm like holding my breath. Is it a memory I want to see?
Am I going to be happy or sad for this memory?
Exactly.
Like, come on. That's such a thing. I always laugh about that. Or it's like Facebook will be like, hey, this person just posted and you guys haven't interacted in a while. And it's like, there's a reason. There's a reason why we haven't interacted.
There's a reason, Facebook. Thanks for throwing them back.
Funny.
Putting them back in my feed.
Love you. But yeah, all good. I mean, it's a song. Thankfully, a good song came out of it.
And you dropped a gem about posting it once you are clear and emotionally ready.
Yeah, because even if I talked about this and I was still sad, like, how would that be helpful for anybody?
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, just think smart so you don't be sad.
All right, let's move on to Milk.
Oh, Milk. Love this song. Okay. I'm playing with the lyrics. Okay. What verse? Okay, I'll start from the beginning.
Mhm.
We're the closest you can be, and I've never felt so far. This the love I wanna be in, but why it gotta be so high? Wish you could love me the way that I need, but I keep giving you patience. You're worth it to me. You keep saying we're so different. I get that, I know, but darling, make time for the things that I love. What do I do next? My life is such a mess. What do I do next? Somebody please tell me you can relate with me. I just did all of it.
Yes.
Okay, so first, we're the closest you can be, and I've never felt so far. Basically, just saying, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, but if you don't get it, it's just being really close in a relationship, friendship, or romantically, but feeling farther than a stranger, basically. This is the love I want to be in, but why it gotta be so hard? Basically, it's pretty self-explanatory still, but that's love, though. Love is hard. That's just what it is. But kind of just like saying, like, dang, why does love have to be so hard? And then, wish you could love me the way that I need, but I'll keep giving you patience. You're worth it to me. Definitely don't get into a relationship if somebody does not know how to love the way you need to be loved, because it's just it's not good for either one of you. Not a blow or shout out to anybody. Like, that's just genuinely be with somebody that knows how to love you well and the way that you need to be loved. And then I'll keep giving you patience. You're worth it to me, because true. And you keep saying we're so different. I get it, I know, but I learn to make time for the things that I love. That you keep saying we're different. I get it, I know. Basically came from cultural backgrounds, and then came from growing up backgrounds.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna need someone that understands my background and bear with me and help me understand things. I've grown so much, and I grew so much from that relationship. I'm so thankful for him and genuinely just like what it taught me. But they have to understand, like, I'm slow, like in a lot of ways. I'm still learning a lot of things, and I'm thankfully where I want to be at now, and still striving for more. But that was saying a lot about not even just like our interests, our backgrounds, our cultural differences. And I think it doesn't matter if you're different. If you want it to work out, it will. And that's why I say, go ahead.
And when you refer to cultural backgrounds, what are you specifically referring to?
Mainly just like so like family upbringings, race, and just different things like that. So it's like if I'm in a relationship with someone that is a different race than I am, obviously one, that's beautiful. I think it's beautiful because two races are coming together and sharing cultural differences and coming as one. But if that other person's not on the same side of that, in the sense of, well, I need you to be who my race is. Like, I'm not mad, but at the same time, like, we have to like understand one another, I think. Yeah. Like, I want to take everything from you as well, but at the same time, like, I can't be that because I am this.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it sucks.
And you never will be. I think it's more of the willingness to understand, to want to understand that other culture, and on both ends, it's vice versa. Like, no one's ever, you can't switch cultures. You're not going to just switch up like that. But you can try to understand and accept the differences and learn how to live with those differences.
Right. And that's why I say, but I learn to make time for the things that I love, because I want to understand everything, and I want to, but understanding wasn't enough. It was, there needed to be more. And it's because it just didn't work out, and that's okay. But that's kind of like what I was kind of referring to in that line. And then the hook is what do I do next? My life is such a mess. What do I do next? Somebody please tell me you can relate with me. And I wanted to make this as like broad as possible, because life is hard and it's messy, and relationships are even messier, because people are sinful and we make mistakes and we're not perfect. And so even with the whole track backing it is like this fun, upbeat thing, because it was kind of like the relationship that I wrote this from was, I was fine. I told everybody I was good. Like, we live in our best life. But behind the scenes, I'm crying for help. Like, I don't know how to make sure this works. And someone who's like extremely extroverted, not, just little things like that, differences. And that's why I wanted it to be like kind of like happy and like people are dancing, because that's kind of how I feel like a lot of people live their life.
Got it.
And we need to just be honest, like, bro, like if you're struggling, just say it.
Yeah.
And then why I named the song Milk, if you don't know, is basically because I thought it was funny. I'm lactose intolerant, like terribly.
Oh.
I drink milk every day, like glasses of it, and I'm in so much pain. And it was kind of the same, like and also it's really funny if you go through every lyric and you think like you read it like I'm talking about milk, and it's hilarious.
Okay.
You should do it. It's really funny. Like, I'm literally like singing to like a carton of milk. But it's a metaphor, I guess, basically. Like, I keep going back to something that isn't good for me. When I love it, but it's not good for me.
No, definitely didn't know the reason behind milk. I was going to ask you that, and I'm loving that. And just give it a few more years. You're going to hit a point in your life where you're not going to be able to do the milk thing anymore. And be like, it's not worth it.
That's what
it's not worth
it. Everyone keeps saying, and I'm sad.
It is sad. But that's where I'm at. I don't even know when's the last time I've had like a glass of milk. I'm
doing Whole30 right now, and I'm sad already. Like, I'm so sad.
My only slip up, my weakness is ice cream. Like, real ice cream with dairy.
Yeah, not this vegan ice cream, which is great, but it's not a substitute. It's just another thing.
It's not, exactly. So I do struggle there. Like, every once in a while, I got to do it, and I will suffer that pain. And I'm like, it's so good. But I did have one moment this summer where I was just like buckled over, and I was just like, no, I can't do ice cream anymore. It's not worth it.
I'm so sad for that day. Like, I'm sad.
Yeah.
I've heard people take like lactose pills. So I'm like,
some people, I guess. I mean, if you really trying to be about that life, like you,
right. If you're trying to die, like, just take a pill. It's fine.
But enjoy it. You're still young enough to enjoy your milk.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I will. I'll be miserable.
Let's do Rent 5.
Okay. It's been a minute and I don't have these lyrics anywhere, so just bear with me.
Go ahead.
Should be good though. Okay. Wish you would've solved your problems, but you're too thoughtless. Just being honest with you, wish you would've thought twice before you came and walked up into my life. So I think that's the hook. So like I said earlier, my whole EP is actually about the perspective of foster care. And so that's why the EP is called This Isn't About You. Because I had just got out of a relationship. So everybody was like, oh, she about to drop an EP, like dissing, da-da-da-da-da. And that's literally why I said, like, this isn't about you. Like, this isn't about my ex. This isn't about you. It's literally about others. And that was like the whole point. Go ahead.
How did you start working with foster care? Like,
I started volunteering with at-risk youth, prison, not prison, but like in
juvie.
What's the word? Yes. Oh my gosh, I can't want to say JV. I don't know why. So I worked there. I had tutored kids at a juvenile detention, and I also helped with refugees. And then I was trying to like find my main focus, and I was working with kids in foster care. So I was trying to find my main focus of where I wanted to like hone in, because I couldn't obviously do that every single week. And I kind of realized the more I talked to the kids at the juvie, they had come from foster care, group homes, on the streets, how to steal a car, how to steal food tickets for their sibling, and then at-risk youth are like basically on the verge of being in the foster system. So I started volunteering there with local outreach at Grand Canyon University. They have an incredible local outreach program. It's like literally the greatest thing ever, and also brought a lot of perspective to my life.
Okay.
And I worked with OCJ, which is a nonprofit out in Arizona, and worked with group homes. So I was in charge of 9 group homes. I ran a team, and we had like 70 volunteers that would go in Monday through Saturday and talk with the kids, love on them, work with them, and just kind of just literally spend 2 hours with them and ask them like, how's your day, help them with their homework, because they're not getting like any attention at all whatsoever. And so this is like my biggest goal. Like my biggest dream is to go off with music and then have that money to support and fund my own nonprofit towards foster care. Basically teens and then kids that have aged out, because they're the ones that like immediately are forgotten, and on top of that are immediately considered juvenile. Like, oh, you are in foster care because you did something wrong, because you're 13. And so they automatically think like, oh, you're just a troubled kid, when in reality they've been in this forever, or their parents, something happened with their parents, sadly. And so the more I got to talk with them, the more I realized this story is so important and so powerful. And me coming from a 2-parent household, I can never imagine not having just one parent, and especially none, and not even a grandparent or anything like that, or being with not being with my siblings. So this story really like latched onto me big time, and it gave me so much inspiration to write music. And I dropped this EP knowing that it wasn't going to probably pop off as my other songs because they weren't as poppy. But my goal with this as well is I drop it now, so when I have a bigger platform later, I'm going to bring it back out and express to people like how important this story really is, and how much forgotten these kids really are. And I feel as though the small platform that I do have and the privilege that I am given, I'm going to talk about it when they don't have any. So that was kind of like every story, every song on the EP is a story, and the titles of the song have a number in it. So Rent 5 is basically just rents, and that stands for foster parents. And the 5 represents how they're treated like another number in the system. So all the numbers are they are important. Yeah. And so there's a lot of meaning to this EP for me. Yeah. And for the people that I wrote it about. So, so the first, or the hook is, I have to say this too. I'm kind of all over the map. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good.
This EP was meant to, and every song, so Rent 5 was meant for people to be able to relate to it. And that if they wanted to hear it in further detail, they already had that feeling of I understand, and that would cross over to understanding someone that comes from foster care. So it's a different feeling, but pain, everyone's experienced pain. Some just might be, they're just different, right? So this story is, you could talk about it as a relationship, like, oh, I wish you would have solved your problems to your boyfriend or girlfriend or your friend or your parent or your foster parent. So this is specifically towards bad foster parents that do it just for the money. And so it was, wish you would have solved your problems, but you're too thoughtless, just being honest. Wish you would have thought twice before you came and walked into my life. And that's like this anger of a teenager telling someone, I wish you would have figured out your life before you came into mine. Do you even realize like what I've gone through already? Like, I don't need another burden in my life and another person I have to obey rules to when you genuinely don't care for me as a human being.
Wow.
And then the verse, did I sing that? Do you want me to? Or do you want me to say it?
You can do that. You can sing the next verse. It don't matter.
Okay. So it's so humorous, you mess with all it is to you feel better, what you got out of it, or just whatever, 'cause I still can't understand how you do me like that. Hard to comprehend. You straight knowing what you did. It's been way too loud. That's way too low. But basically, that's them talking to. It's like, it's humorous that this is supposed to be like a good deed.
Yeah.
I mean, you're supposed to be helping people, but it's still selfish.
Yeah.
And that you mess with this, you got involved with all of this. And then it's like, do you genuinely feel better? Like, is this making you happier that you get to post it on social media that you're a good foster parent, but you're really just doing it for the money? And then it's just like this internal process. Like, I still can't understand how you did me like that. Can't comprehend it, that you're straight and like you're cool knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then the chorus is, it's been way too loud in my mind since you. Can't get off the ground, still can't seem to come through. Thoughts lost in our, so I'll start there. Loud in the sense of, I was talking about a personal story that of a friend that I know that is very personal to me, and just something that went through from their foster parent, that they did a lot of damage in their life. And so like this loudness, like they can't escape it, and they feel like they're just floating, and they can't continue with their life because of what this person did to them in their life. And thoughts lost in our past is, going back to, they can't move on, wanting it to pass. And it says, all because of you, I question everything that I do. And that also just goes down to trust. Like, who do I trust again? Like, I can't even trust anybody, and I question everything every step that I take because of what this person put into my life. And another reason I wrote and even though I didn't experience it personally, people will listen to it more if they think it's about something else that's not as sad, or as like serious, and they're like, oh, I can relate to this. And so that was like the main reason why I said it like that, because if it sounds like its story, and then I can talk about it further in person if somebody really genuinely wants to hear more about it. And it was awesome when I dropped all of this, like so many kids that I know that were in the foster care system, and people I didn't know that had followed me and were fans. Like, I met up with them and they were like, I aged out. And I was like, I didn't even know that. Like, I didn't even know that you were in the system. And so many great stories like came from it, and stuff.
That's amazing. I mean, and it's cool how it's like a double read or double perspective, because it does sound like you're talking about relationships. But when you do the breakdown and you're reciting the words, like, it totally makes sense that it can be said to a foster parent as well.
Right.
It's just cool.
You could do both.
Double meaning. And just like that cause is good. It's a great cause, and not too many people point attention to it. Awesome. I had no idea that was like the concept behind the EP. So
cool. Glad you asked.
So musically, how does God's presence look like in your life?
Musically, how does God's presence? I think mainly this voice that he's given to me is a gift, and I want to use it for him in whatever way that I possibly can. So if that's leading worship on Sundays, awesome. If that's singing at a refugee camp, awesome. If that's putting stuff on Spotify about a relationship, awesome. Because I believe that I'm glorifying God in all of that.
Yeah.
And musically, this is my biggest passion. Like I said, like telling other people's stories and other people's perspectives that don't have the platform to do so. And so musically, I get to share what Jesus has called us to do as Christians. And I'm reading James right now, and literally at like the end of James, it says, I mean, it constantly is in the Bible of love the orphan, care for the widow. As Christians, you are a fool not to do so. That is what we're called to do. And to any extent, like, love the broken, care for the needy, and the less vulnerable, like, or the more vulnerable, like, that is so important. And so musically, I want to get that message across so we can have conversations like this, so we can grow and have Jesus ultimately be shown. And I feel so connected with Jesus through music. I know a lot of people do. It's such a form of worship that we are so privileged to have. So privileged to have. And being able to connect with him in that way is such a beautiful thing in my life.
Definitely. And I mean, it's also the way that you were talking about connecting to Jesus through music and just how powerful of a tool it is to have that perspective growing up where you were taught literally that what rhythm was the devil's heartbeat. Like,
right. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, I feel close to God in this devil's heartbeat, whatever.
Yeah. That's, gosh, God is just amazing. And just to see how he's working and has worked and is working in your life.
Yes. Amen.
To me, like, this is why I love talking to people about God, because it's like, whenever people are like, how do you know God is real? Well, I just had a conversation with him, and God's real.
Right. It's crazy. I always say, like, it's crazy that we're still in the church. It's crazy that I still follow Jesus with the corruption that I was surrounded with as a kid. But then I also say, it's really not that crazy, because when you know Jesus, there's no better thing. Literally nothing. Right. So,
right.
But yeah, you're right. That's it. People's stories are beautiful.
Yeah. All right. So my last question. Now that you've gone through this interview process with me, who would you like to see me interview on the podcast?
Ooh. I have a friend. His name is Sam Apoku.
Spell that last name for me.
Yeah, sorry. So Opuku. I think that's right.
Okay.
I'm the worst at spelling. He's an incredible artist. He's from Ghana, and he and his family got like. No, I'm not going to tell his story. You need to interview him. He's awesome. He's an incredible musician. Loves Jesus, and his testimony is something that you'll realize God is real after you hear his testimony.
Hey, what's up? Thank you. Thank you for listening to the show. Thank you for watching the show. However you consume us, thank you. Please subscribe to the show. And if you really enjoy the content, please leave a review. It really does help with the ranking of the show. And if you want to go an extra mile, share the show. Share this episode. And for all things testimony, visit testimonystories.com. Until next time, I'm Gilika Brown, the music lover constantly seeking positive music.